It's time to have your say. Welcome back to the Q&A. AskSCW will be answering your questions in the wrestling community straight after this. Plenty of top topics on today's show on WWE, AEW, and much, much more. Coming up, celebrating 20 years of Randy Orton, some of my favourite moments in the career of the Viper. Which 5 WWE superstars are in desperate need of a draft move? Going to give you a preview for tomorrow night's Monday Night Raw, who'll be walking away Raw Women's Champion. Of course, as well, Becky Lynch will be returning also. And of course, I mentioned AEW. What are my thoughts on Hangman Adam Page versus CM Punk? So plenty to look forward to, including much, much more. But if you want to be involved on the next AskSCW, drop a question, just one question, in the comments below with the hashtag AskSCW. I know to include in the next episode and give you a shout out. Or you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all showing up the screen right about now. Well, without further ado, let's get on with our first question this week. And it comes from Anthony New asking, what are some of your favourite Randy Orton moments of all time? So many moments. I could be talking about this for hours, but I'm going to do my best to give it a small condensed answer to your question here. Randy Orton, 20 years of the Viper and well-deserved celebration coming to him on Monday Night Raw this week. And of course, it all started back in 2002, a young up-and-starter on SmackDown trying to find his way. Some of my early favourite moments when we go to 2003 when he joined Evolution, one of my favourite stables of all time. Of course, Randy went to become an Intercontinental Champion, of course, also to become the World Heavyweight Champion, beating Chris Benoit in the main event of SummerSlam 2004. Definitely one of my favourite moments. I remember thinking that was not going to happen, and I popped a big star when he actually won the title, only to be kicked out of Evolution the next night. And of course, the face turn didn't quite work out for him at that early stage, but of course, he went to go back to being heel once again in a great match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 21. A great feud with him throughout 2005. That match at WrestleMania 21 was really the place where you knew that Randy Orton was going to be a major player in WWE. And one of the other major feuds he had early on as well, also while still in Evolution, was against Mick Foley. Of course, remember the classic they had at Backlash 2004, some real standout moments early on. He would move on to a team with Edge, rated RKO in 2006, which was a lot of fun. Their feud with DX was a really fun one at the time. And the feud with Shawn Michaels would continue into 07. Of course, the Punk kick would come from Randy Orton. We really started getting signs of the Viper then as he, the mannerisms of what Randy Orton would become, especially when he got the group Legacy, which was definitely one of my favourite groups in WWE history, along with Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase. We'll forget Manu's and the sidekicks that were in there. The main three was the real bulk there, and of course that led to Randy Orton to superstardom going into the 2009 feud into WrestleMania 25. That rivalry with Triple H, with Randy just being his most sadistic at that time, was so much fun to watch. And yes, the match didn't quite live up to hype at WrestleMania, but certainly was a big time deal. One of my favourite rivalries probably Randy Orton has had over the years. And you have to say as well, the early rivalry with John Cena as well around that time period was a lot of fun to watch as well. As was, going to 2011, the feud with Christian, one of my real standout feuds, where Christian would want one more match, of course, after Edge had retired. These two had a great series of matches and great stipulation matches as well, going throughout the summer of 2011, a real highlight moment. And of course, as we go through sort of the future years, the rivalry with Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 31, where Randy was in the Authority and then leaving the Authority, one of the best RKOs ever hit on Seth Rollins during that show as well. Spectacular to see. A couple of other notable RKOs as well, because you have to mention RKOs with Randy. Evan Bourne was a few years before with the Shooting Star Press, and as well, just recently, Chad Gable perfectly moonsaulting into one onto Monday Night Raw. You can't forget about the feud with Edge when Edge just returned. The build-up was absolutely spectacular. Yes, unfortunately, with the pandemic and stuff like that, we didn't really get to see what I suppose could have been how this could have played out on WrestleMania at the time. But of course, they did have a great match at Backlash in 2020 as well. And of course, this last 12 months, Randy Orton doing the stuff of RK Bro, certainly been refreshing, fun to see with his character as well. And I've got to say as well, I had the opportunity to see Randy Orton live at a WWE show about 6 months ago now, ironically against the Usos at Survivor Series last year. Randy Orton has just got a great way of telling a story in the ring. His great sense of getting crowd reaction, timing, everything just falls into place so naturally with a Randy Orton match. It's very different with a lot of superstars that you see with the current generation. Randy Orton shows quite clearly in the ring why he's still going 20 years later, why he's still one of the big names, why he's still one of the most relevant names in WWE, and why he's been a multi-time world champion. Is it like 13, 14 times Randy Orton has been a world champion. It's real telling sign with the way you see how he is and how he acts in the ring, with his storytelling, whether it's building up a program, whether it's a match in the ring. You know, Randy has just got is a special talent, a once in a generation. As JBL once said, he is the perfect sports entertainer that you would build from the ground up. And Randy Orton has shown over 20 years that he just is that guy and plenty more. And if Randy wants to, I couldn't see why he wouldn't want to go on for another 5-10 years in WWE. He is that damn good. But to close things off with my personal favourite, just to pick some of those out of there, the groups, of course, Evolution and Legacy, like I say, real standouts. The rivalry with Christian, for me, is definitely one that stands out as well, along with Triple H, of course, going into WrestleMania 25. And I've got to say, particularly the RKOs and stuff with Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 31 is probably my standout favourite. But let me know your favourite Randy Orton moments in the comments below. I can't wait to hear what your favourite Randy Orton moments are throughout his 20-year career in WWE. Next question comes from Martin Lorenzo Carrillo. Since it's been a couple of months from the WWE draft, pick 5 superstars that you think were better off on the opposite brand than their current brand right now, and why. Great question, this one. Now, I've got 1 or 2 potential controversial answers towards the end of this question, but of course, TV time is crucial as we go into the first bit. If you're not on TV, you're not being utilized well on Raw or SmackDown. So the first thing I'm going to give you is Apollo Crews, because Apollo, damn it, he's a well-talented guy. I like the gimmick, I like the character, and if he was on SmackDown right now, he'd be a perfect challenger for the Intercontinental Championship against Ricochet. On Raw, he's jobbing in 2-on-1 handicap matches with the advantage, by the way, to Omos in a couple of minutes. Apollo has fallen from grace from the character that sort of debuted that we got in 2021 that was winning the Intercontinental Championship at last year's WrestleMania. It just feels like he's a jobber at this point. So for me personally, SmackDown would have been a much better home for him. And I do think right now SmackDown seems to lack a bit of depth in their divisions. Ricochet, you know, going against Jinder Mahal and Shanky at the moment with the IC title. I think Apollo Crews would be a much better suitable guy going for that championship. My next answer would be Shotzi Blackheart. Now, of course, she was on SmackDown anyway last year, but I think a move to Raw in hindsight, I think would have been a good thing for her. There's more TV time for the women on a Monday night, and Shotzi just seems to not get any TV time at all. The girl is so talented and deserves a big push. WWE didn't know what to do with it in a team with Tegan Nox. They didn't know what to do with it as a babyface. They made her go heel, and now they're not even pushing her as a heel. So for me personally, Xia Li's just turned heel on SmackDown. I suppose you can make them a team. They won the tag titles, they could go over to Raw, but for me, it should have been on Raw. She'd have had the opportunity at least to get some TV time, although knowing WWE, she probably would have been with the 24/7 fodder as well. Which ironically leads me to my next one, Nikki ASH, Nikki Cross if you want. She's now just gone so downhill on Raw. Now, at the time, it felt like the right move for her to be on that show. Now she is in the 24/7 championship picture, and let's be fair, it's a character that just hasn't gone right, has it? Nikki ASH was supposed to be the almost superhero to almost get the job done, to really have that true underdog story where WWE just gave her the Raw Women's Championship within about 4 weeks of arrival with the Money in the Bank briefcase, and all of a sudden there was a complete disconnect from the character, and you know, people just weren't buying into it, they weren't getting over. She just looked like someone that was not fitting in with this gimmick, getting booed at live events when she was meant to be cheered. I personally would like to see a return to the Nikki Cross character. We've tried this Nikki ASH character out, it's not worked. I think Nikki Cross would do much more, you know, benefit on no one either show, Raw or SmackDown. I personally, actually, if she was on Raw, I'd like to see her with Piper Niven and Doudrop as a team, but if she'd been on SmackDown right now, she'd perhaps at least get an opportunity to have matches, I don't know, with the likes of Sasha Banks or, you know, Naomi, Ronda Rousey. There are people she could be wrestling, or she could even go after Charlotte Flair. But of course, I would actually have Nikki Cross as a heel if it was myself personally. So let's go with the controversial one, shall we? We're going to start with AJ Styles, because AJ for me just feels like an afterthought on Raw. He doesn't feel like the main event. On SmackDown, the guy is the face that runs the place. He's the champion. He's the top contender. He is the guy that's seen as a main event big deal. Now, he's in a program right now with Edge, which is a big time deal on Monday Night Raw, but I just don't feel that main event Styles on Raw, and I never have. I feel throughout the years, when AJ has been on Raw, it just hasn't connected the same. SmackDown AJ Styles is where it's at. I think if AJ was on SmackDown right now, he'd be perfect as a candidate to go against Roman Reigns, because Roman seems to have, well, nothing going on. We still don't know who the next challenger is going to be for the Tribal Chief. It feels like WWE Creative has no idea at this point either. AJ Styles is someone I'd like to see back in the mix at some point, whether it's after his rivalry with Edge or how it was going to be. But the next time we get a draft round, I think AJ should move to SmackDown, because SmackDown is sort of lacking the top stars in my personal opinion. It feels like apart from Drew McIntyre, there's no one obvious to go for Roman. If you want to save that match for a big later date, for me, it feels that we need one or two more big names on SmackDown to fill the void then, where the likes of Brock Lesnar is not around, which gives me to my last one, another controversial one. Bobby Lashley. Now, people are saying, well, hang on, didn't WWE just release a report he's meant to be your top babyface on Monday Night Raw? I think Cody's being presented as the top babyface. If you're going to ask my personal opinion, I think Cody will be #1 long-term going forward. Lashley is in a feud with Omos and MVP, which, let's be fair, it's a natural fit right now. But what afterwards? What happens to the Almighty? Is he going to be someone going for the top gold on Monday nights? Or is he going to be going with rivalry Seth Rollins, KO? Would be interesting to see, but I feel Lashley could lack a bit of direction now that he's not with MVP. At least if he was on SmackDown, he could be another one of those challengers for Roman Reigns in the meantime. And I do think right now, Lashley, the Almighty, against Roman Reigns, head of the table, that feud for me, I think, would be money if it was printed right now. It would be much more exciting than the feud they had a number of years ago. But this time, it would feel like two legit main eventers going head to head. Next question comes from Noob and Co. Now that Rhea Ripley is a heel, who's going to be the #3 face in the WWE Raw's division, Asuka or Bayley? Now, of course, we got this rumoured backstage pecking order very recently of who was going to be the babyface order and the heel order as well in WWE. Now, Rhea Ripley's gone over to the heel side. She was the #3 babyface. Who takes that spot? Well, if Asuka or Bayley are going to come back, you're for sure, if they're on the Raw side, they will be in that top 3. But both have been cleared for a long time. Neither of them are on TV at this present moment. So I would like to take someone that's actually there, because Bianca Belair is the #1 on the face side. Alexa Bliss, who's not on TV, is meant to be #2. So why not have Liv Morgan as #3? I mean, Liv Morgan has had so many supporters with the WWE Universe since the Money in the Bank last year. From that support alone, she's managed to get herself in pay-per-view singles matches. She's managed to get herself on the Survivor Series team. She had a great rivalry for the Raw Women's Championship with Becky Lynch at the turn of the year. So why couldn't Liv Morgan take that #3 spot? I personally think fans are still invested in what she's doing. I do think the rivalry of her and Rhea Ripley will be made for WrestleMania Backlash. Of course, Rhea Ripley would need to go over in that bout, but why couldn't Liv Morgan, go on to other programs, be the #3 babyface on Monday nights? Because she definitely be a star for the future. People like Asuka and Bayley, they are of the now, if you want, but definitely need to invest in the superstars of tomorrow as well. So Liv Morgan will be my personal choice, especially until we learn which brand Asuka and Bayley would land on, which at this point, from my understanding, Bayley could be going to SmackDown, Asuka completely unsure of, so let's see how it will play out. Now, as I say, I usually take one question per Q&A, but Elijah, I'm going to let you off one more time here. He's asking, what do I think is going to happen on Raw, and what is next for Becky Lynch? How would it fix SmackDown in my opinion? What are my thoughts about Mansoor joining LA Knights, of course, with his new group? Would I like to see another guy or girl join that group? And will we see Finn Balor turn heel on Raw to join Edge and Damian Priest's group? So let's go for the Raw preview then, shall we? Of course, we do know we've got the 20-year celebration of Randy Orton since joining WWE on, of course, SmackDown. It was back in 2002. I hope that we get some sort of This Is Your Life segment. No, I know we're not talking Alexa Bliss and Bayley from 2017. I'm thinking more on the lines of The Rock and Mankind from 1998. If they could do something like that to go through the career of Randy Orton on Monday Night Raw, I think the goofiness of Riddle could really play off the Mankind style character off, and I think it could be a really golden segment. I think as well, we'll do really well to set up for the pay-per-view match at WrestleMania Backlash. I expect the Usos to probably interrupt this celebration as well in some format, perhaps even with Roman Reigns as well. If I could really get my fantasy booking wish out, I would have Cody Rhodes as a part of that segment, and we could have a 6-man tag team match to main event the show, but I don't expect we'd get that last part, but definitely expect the Usos to ruin the celebration. Of course, we got Bianca Belair defending the Raw Women's Championship against Sonya Deville. The 3-week storyline probably will finish here. Of course, Bianca Belair is in her hometown, so I expect her to pick up the W there. Becky Lynch is returning. I'm expecting then Becky Lynch will insert herself into a championship match against Bianca Belair for WrestleMania Backlash. I do think there is one more chapter with these two ladies. Could potentially be referring to hair going forward, if that's going to be the case. I'm not quite sure where else the story would go from here, but it'd be interesting to see what Becky Lynch we will get. Will she be, you know, trying to get in that championship match as I'm predicting? We could even perhaps see a different side of Becky, perhaps a lost version of Becky in herself, because she's no longer the champion. This could be a different side of the character that could come out. But those are the main things that have been highlighted for Raw. But of course, we do know Rhea Ripley, of course, has turned heel on Liv Morgan. As I said in an earlier question, I expect that to be built now for WrestleMania Backlash. You know, we've got Edge and Damian Priest as well. I don't think Finn Balor is joining the group, no, but we know we've got Edge against AJ Styles, so I expect more build for that towards WrestleMania Backlash. So it should be a good, compelling show. Of course, Ezekiel and Kevin Owens, that's been fun seeing that's been put together as well. So lots of things to look forward to on this edition of Raw coming up. On how I'd fix SmackDown. Personally, for me, I don't think SmackDown's broken, so I don't think necessarily needs fixing. I just think SmackDown needs more depth. They've got star power on that show. Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, the Usos, Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, Sasha Banks, The New Day. You know, we've got star power on this show. I just don't think we've got depth in a lot of the divisions. The best divisions probably on this show are probably the women's division and the tag division. I think the singles divisions, particularly for, you know, Roman Reigns, I think there's only really Drew McIntyre. We've not really got any build with that. We could do some more star power on that show. And Ricochet, you know, he seems to be going with the sort of like jobbers, it feels, on SmackDown at the moment when it comes to defending the IC title. I'd like to see some more creditable challengers go for him. So I think that's sort of areas of the card that I think could really do with a bit more depth. Of course, storytelling is always key and could always be better with that for a WWE show. It seems that Raw's got the better end of that at the moment. That could come down to some of the characters, but you know, for me, it's all about consistency. It's all about trying to make it feel like it flows as a very quick show and having star power in every segment is important, fun storytelling. That good stuff really is what makes a good show on WWE TV for me. And SmackDown, it's doing some alright things, but for me, it could do better, and I think depth is what would help it along. They've released a lot of people from that show in the last number of months. As for Mansoor joining LA Knight with his group, of course, with Mace, or Face, I should say at this point. Why not? You know, Mansoor's not doing anything. He's not on TV at all. I suppose he can fit the gimmick. Why not? I'd like to just see how it's going to go, how it's going to play out when it actually comes onto WWE TV, because now they're on these dark segments we're not seeing in the arenas, but somehow the WWE are aware that we are finding out this information. Who else would I like to see join? I'd like Aaliyah to join the group. I think she'd be a good fit for this group. I think it could be quite fun to see and give her something to do. She's not got a lot to do right now in WWE. Another one of the females that could be doing a lot more. So for me, I would pair her up in this group and certainly think that would be a fun quartet. See how it could run in WWE. Could get some tag team champions. We could get some mid-card champions. We could even get, you know, Aaliyah going for the women's championship at some point. Let's see how it's going to roll. For me, I'm not going to judge until I've seen it properly on my WWE TV screen, at least for a number of weeks. Last questions this week come from Jeff Samuel, and yes, for 1 more week, I will take more than one question, but I do prefer one question only. How do I feel about CM Punk versus Hangman Adam Page? Who should face Ricochet for the IC title at Backlash? And since Rhea is turned heel, does she face Bianca? Does Liv get written off for TV? Or does Alexa come back to save her? So really fun questions, these ones. I don't think we get Rhea versus Bianca until at least Hell in a Cell, Money in the Bank time. I think first of all, we'll get Rhea Ripley against Liv Morgan. Will she write Liv Morgan off TV? I don't think so, but certainly Rhea Ripley will be going over in that feud. Alexa Bliss will return to television at some point further down the line. Alexa Bliss versus The Nightmare could be interesting. I'd be down for seeing that feud, especially as Alexa Bliss is going to be positioned as a babyface. I just hope we get more, you know, a bit more connection of what's going on with Alexa Bliss's character, because a lot of change was being put in place. Then she was fast-tracked to TV with Elimination Chamber, and we've not seen her since. So it'll be interesting to see when she comes back how she is going to be portrayed on our screens. As for Ricochet with the IC title, I don't think he's facing anyone on Backlash, if I'm honest. It'll be the pre-show at best, if anyone. He's currently feuding with Jinder Mahal and Shanky, so who knows? The triple threat match could be the case. As I said earlier in the video, I wish Apollo Crews was on SmackDown. He would be the one I'd like to see go for that title at this point. As someone as a future challenger that could win the title off of Ricochet, I think Sami Zayn will eventually be the one, mainly because Sami Zayn makes the championship relevant, and at this point, I just don't think there's anyone else. And let's finish off then with an AEW question. My thoughts of Hangman and Page against CM Punk. I think it is the right time to do this match for both wrestlers, honestly. For me, it's CM Punk going for a world championship in AEW. That is going to draw headlines in itself. It will bring, you know, CM Punk fans in that will want to see this match. CM Punk has had the reunion tour, and then he's had a real great feud with MJF that really, arguably put him back on the map. He's now been winning matches since and getting himself into the world title picture. He's now, declared he wants that title, and Hangman Page has acknowledged him for that championship match as well. So I expect it to be booked for Double or Nothing at the end of May. And Hangman Adam Page has some great matches throughout his title run so far, against Bryan Danielson, against Adam Cole, against Lance Archer. But I would argue and say that I don't think he's had the best storyline at this moment since becoming champion. Everything that we connected with Hangman Adam Page, I think we've lost as he's become champion, which I think has made people disconnect with the championship reign to this point. CM Punk is a very clever person and knows how to use ring psychology, perhaps even go with a more heel dynamic for this one. I think we're going to see a lot of emphasis put on Hangman Adam Page as the champion, perhaps as the inexperienced champion against the legend and former multi-time world champion that is CM Punk. I think coming out of this, both stars are going to come out smelling of roses, and I think Hangman Adam Page, I think a lot of people may look at his title reign very differently after a feud with CM Punk. So for me, I think it's the right time to do this. I think if you leave it too long with CM Punk, people think, look, he's just there to be a mid-carder, he's not going to be the top guy. So this is an opportunity to do so. Will CM Punk win the title though? That's a big question, and personally for me, I don't think he needs it at this point. I think Hangman needs to win more, and I still believe MJF will be the next person to become AEW World Champion. But of course, at the moment, he's got his stuff going on with Wardlow. But yeah, for me, big time deal. Two of my favourites in AEW. I'm looking forward to Hangman versus Punk, and I'm excited to see what this rivalry will bring forward over the coming weeks as we go towards Double or Nothing. But that's all for me. Thank you everyone for watching Ask SCW as always, and thank everyone for your questions. It's been great to talk professional wrestling with you all. If you've enjoyed this video, then please like the video, share with a friend, and subscribe as well. And drop a comment as well with any of the topics been discussed today. I cannot wait to interact with you. Now, I must admit, it's been a bit difficult to put some videos on the channel as of late. Just things have got in the way. Life's been a bit busy, but hopefully more content will be dropping on the channel this week. I want to thank everyone that's been so supportive of the videos that have been coming out of late, been growing in views and likes and comments and stuff. So appreciate everyone's support, and please keep the coming with the videos that will be coming up, including going to be talking AEW New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door coming up this week, and also finally looking to get the Cody Rhodes video out. It's been a couple of weeks I've been working on it. Hopefully we'll be able to get it out for you this week. But check out these videos on the side of the screen right now if you haven't seen them already. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you soon here on YouTube. Thank you for watching. All the best.